If you can make a move relatively conservatively, then you should make it now. I want to make money. I want to be financially successful, but I'm not going to do it through owning my own house. And it wasn't until I became a little bit experienced in commercial property that I started realizing the benefits of it over resi. This state and even this country, you know, we are taxed just, it's almost beyond belief. Yeah. If I was in that position, or if one of my family members or having since learned that one of my friends was in that position, I'd be so fucking angry if somebody did what I had the opportunity to do.
All right, today we're with Oscar Ledlin. Oscar, thanks for joining us. Very excited to have a chat today.
Thank you for having me on, bro. I appreciate it.
It was pretty funny, actually. Like, before we started, like, we're probably talking for 15 minutes all about property, and then we go, shit, are we recording or not?
It was the same when you called me on Friday, and you're like, oh, we'll have a chat about this, have a chat about that, and I was like, I should probably hit record now on this phone call.
Yeah, we kind of need somebody following us around when we have these conversations. So, it's good. Looking forward to having this chat today. So I guess a bit about what I wanted to cover today. Obviously, we've done your story many times. We don't need to do any of that today. I'm more interested in, I guess, the current market at the moment, what's happening. Obviously, inflation rates been as high as it's ever been in the last, decade, which we've seen it. And I was doing some research recently about some people that were asking questions around, money in the bank versus should they buy their own home versus should they buy investment properties, et cetera, or managed funds such as Vanguards and these sorts of things. And a lot of these people are like, when you put the numbers up against it, like, I think, obviously keeping your money in the bank is completely, a dead strategy in of itself because, being the last 3 years of inflation was 5.03% on average.
Crazy.
So, obviously that's out. But what I'm interested to talk about today is also, I saw you doing a podcast and you were bashing resi pretty hard. And I'm a resi guy.
Gloves are off.
So I guess we'll get into that a little bit today. Yeah. And I think that could be fun for everybody too because obviously I built my portfolio on the residential side of things and obviously you've been extremely successful on the commercial side of things. So I look forward to getting stuck into a bit of that.
Absolutely.
And maybe let's talk about, with the commercial side, let's talk about maybe why you chose commercial in the first place and why did you actually ever dabble with residential at all or was it always commercial that you'd invested in?
So I initially pursued resi. Yep. There was a little residential duplex site that I had my eyes on, but it just never come to. The project never come to and I ended up in an industrial project which was really opportunity more than anything.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I became a little bit experienced in commercial property that I started realizing the benefits of it over resi. When I was dreaming of being a property developer when I was younger, it was always like luxury apartments, townhouses, big houses, all that sort of stuff. So resi really captured my attention young. But when I started exploring and understanding commercial property more, it became evident to me that, there has been in recent times a financial benefit of commercial property investing over resi. Mm. And now when I say commercial property, there's 100 different commercial property classes. There's office, there's all the industrial classes, there's supermarkets, service stations. There's literally quite hundreds of different, there's studios like this.
Yeah.
Ledlin and my personal investment portfolio, we're heavily focused in the industrial sectors. So warehousing and strata storage is where the predominant focus for us is. And the last 10 years has been, incredibly favorable for that asset class.
Yeah, awesome. So is it more so that you like commercial as an investing asset class, therefore you think, let's develop it so you can actually hold more of this asset class that you prefer? Is it more of that side?
I mean, there's probably a few tiers to it. The first one is I love business.
Yep.
I'm CEO of a few businesses now. I'm really just passionate about seeing businesses grow and succeed. So when I'm planning a business park or doing a floor plan layout for an office warehouse, it's just something I'm passionate about seeing, like, how can we make this property more valuable to the end user. So how can we make it more functional? How can we make an aesthetic for, the marketing purposes and stuff like that? So that really helps keep my attention, which is obviously a great thing in business.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, like, you've been pretty innovative with the side of commercial. So obviously, I mean, I even spoke to you a few years ago about one of the concepts which you made, which was one of the flexis. So maybe tell us a bit about that. Where did that kind of come from? And has that been a good investment to your traditional warehouses? And where do you see each of those going for the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So flexi is really an innovation that emerged out of the need for affordability. So, industrial property prices have been on a crazy upward trajectory for the last 10 years. And the last 3 or 4 years, it's been, incredible. They've outperformed every property asset class that has been measured in the last 10 years, but more so in the last 4 years. So affordability started to become a consideration for these small mum and dad businesses, small entrepreneurs that are looking for that, first step out of the garage. Now the flexi unit is what we pitch as, the go-to for those small businesses. So essentially it's like a strata storage unit. So they're about 50 square meters on average. They go up to about 110. So if anybody knows, it's a couple of double car garages joined together.
Yep.
There's internal clearance high enough to have a mezzanine for, a bit of a breakout area. And then there's communal co-working office space, communal boardroom. We have a communal rooftop terrace at our upcoming project, a car wash. So they're really, really targeted at that small business user that wasn't quite ready or didn't quite have the need for a larger warehouse space. From an investment point of view, they've incredibly outperformed even our own expectations. We've had incredible uptake for leasing for our recent project that's completed on behalf of our investment purchasers. We help them find tenants, and the leasing uptake is, it's been incredible. They're all on commercial leases, so as you understand, all outgoings are paid by the tenant. They're minimum 2-year first terms, but often 3+3.
Awesome.
We have fixed rent increases within all our leases. You mentioned inflation, something that you and I didn't have to consider up until now for the first time in our careers because, it hasn't been a big thing in Australia until recently. But, now we're hedging our bets forward by having, fixed 3, 4, 5% rental increases built into these leases as well. So
for sure. Yeah, definitely. No, certainly one of the things that resonated with me actually, and I'm interested in your mindset on this, is you introduced flexis because it gave, whether it's mum and dad investors or whether it's early starting business people that are getting into their kind of journey and a little bit earlier on, it gives them an ability to get into the market as well. And I guess one of the big notions for myself was always like buying what you could afford. And like my first investment property that I purchased was actually $134,000. It would have been in 2014. And at the time, actually, I worked for an investment company and a property investment company in residential. And one of the things that really pissed me off was actually that they were all like shitting on me for going for this type of asset because this asset was an established property. It was on a larger block. It was a bit older.
You're literally describing all the great things about it as though they were negative. Yeah,
it was great actually. Yeah. But what I didn't like is this company was like, kind of had a one-size-fits-all approach to portfolio building. And I feel like portfolio building isn't necessarily a one-size-fits approach for how I see it. Like for my portfolio, I have apartments in my portfolio, which admittedly are more emotional lifestyle decisions. I do have commercial properties in my portfolio as well. And we'll talk about a few more times where I tried to buy commercial properties and what happened. I've got offices that I own in Dubai and in Australia. And then obviously I have residential properties. But, I suppose a big thing that pisses me off is when people only be like, it's my way or the highway. And I often see that with a lot of, more so the people on like Instagram throwing ads out, sort of saying like, this person's bashing this person, etc. So I don't know, from my end, like I kind of see the pros and cons in all the asset classes. But the key point that I was going to make is, the flexi being at a price point where people can actually afford and buying what you can fucking afford, not like waiting 4 years to save, to be able to purchase a $600,000 property. If there's a way you can get in for $350,000, $400,000, maybe you're saving a bit of time and you're actually getting exposure to the market. Like maybe if someone's sitting there going like, thinking like, I need $700,000 or $800,000 to invest, what's your mindset around that?
Yeah,
should they be jumping in,
firstly, like I 100% agree with, portfolio building and different asset classes for different portfolios and different individuals. And you're right, like, you can cut up, and you'll have seen cut up podcast clips of me bashing on resi, but it's always pretense with, I think residential property investment is great. I just think there's, considerations. It's not the be all and end all, and it's the same with commercial. So with flexis, at our recent project, Flexi Springvale, we sold the smallest flexis from $99,000. And when we were designing the flexi unit, we worked very closely with a few banks. And the outcome of that is, our clients are achieving up to 80% LVRs. So, for less than 30 grand, including stamp duty and conveyancing, they've got themselves, positively geared commercial property, which is, awesome. In my opinion, like, it's almost an unrivaled first-time commercial property investment.
That's solid, because that was actually my question. I was going to say, how does the lending work? What does the LVR look like? Does somebody have to tie up a lot of capital to actually get into one of these flexis? But the answer is actually, well, no, not really. If you can work with the lenders and get 80% LVR.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think and that's always, I don't want to hang shit on any other resi investment gurus, but it's always the first
that's
spanner
the
to be
thing that they come in. Yeah.
Oh no, you need a 50 or, you max, you'll go to 60% LVR.
Yeah.
It's like, that was the case 10 years ago, but banks have a real appetite for industrial property and multiple commercial property assets now. And, with our strata storage units and our warehouse units, we've got multiple lenders, including, a few of the big four that'll loan up to 80%, which is fantastic.
Unreal. One of the things that pissed me off back in the day is I wanted to get into the market. I remember being like 18, 19, and I was like, fuck, I need to save my deposit. Like, I was really eager and actually would almost get frustrated. Like, at the time I was doing a bit of like Uber Eats stuff, and I was like working as a kitchen hand, and I did a bit of part-time real estate, and I was sort of massaging it. But long story short, I was trying to get the deposit together, and I circled in on a few properties, and a few real estate agents that I still know now, we're still in the game, but they were selling me, I was trying to buy these studio apartments. And they were like university kind of lodge studio things. And same sort of thing, you see something at $100,000 and you think you can buy it. You go, great, I've got the deposit. It's about the lending.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lending's the most important thing.
100%. And when we were designing the flexi unit, we're like, we want polished concrete floors, and we want like communal lounge areas and stuff like that. And we were getting caught up in all that, shiny shit, the fun part of the design. And then we're like, hang on a second, if we can't get the lending right for our purchases, then there's no point having this asset available. So that 100%. Was, where we really focused. And what it come down to was how we meet electricity, size requirements, car parking spaces, how the subdivision is done from a, a development point of view. And like I said, the ultimate outcome is fantastic.
Yeah, awesome. And one thing I was really interested in is, obviously you and I, we started our careers in the property industry, probably, I dare say, over a decade now, nearly.
We're old.
Yeah, we are old, we're getting on. So, for those guys now that are probably sitting arguably where we were at 20 years old, thinking, damn, I want to get something, I'm motivated, I'm seeing what Oscar's doing, I'm seeing what other guys are doing, I'm motivated. What would you do, say, if you were that 20-year-old now, knowing what you know, if you were looking up at some guys, but you're in this market, what would be some tangible steps that you might look at actually taking to get back to where you were? And
oh man, that's a pretty loaded question. But I think the ultimate advice that I would give is to take action, like to not plan for too long, not to self-educate for too long. Like planning is so important and education is so important, but I think we can all get caught up in like, another book, another seminar, another whatever, I'll speak to my mortgage broker for the 15th time. Like I think if you can make a move relatively conservatively, then you should make it now. And within property, if you're looking for like to enter the property market, if you're really stretched, well, then I think like, there is...
You can reconsider it at that point.
Exactly. But I think if you can either consider lower entry value property, or if you can come up with another way to make it more comfortable, if you can comfortably enter, like I think, now is as good a time as any, and arguably probably a better time than what it has been for the last 18 months.
100%. I would echo 100% what you said. And I think actually that was actually an awesome response to that question. The number one important thing that I think people need to be doing is taking action. You know, whether it's, you know, you make a mistake, sure, you take a little haircut. Like the idea is like, I feel like in a way, like property is a little bit like a bad haircut. Like I have made some small mistakes, but because I've taken action, I've been able to come out at a good position.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing more valuable than experience, right? And, you know, if you're just trying to find that perfect deal and, you know, you're just waiting, and it's like at some point you got to jump in and fuck up and learn from that and become a better property investor or developer 100%. Or whatever it is you want to be.
Analysis paralysis is a much bigger killer, and most people that I speak to are often like, the biggest mistakes in property that I made is that either I didn't buy sooner or I didn't buy when other people were saying like, this isn't a good area. I listened to them. Like they're often the biggest mistakes. They're around not taking action rather than actually buying a lemon most of the time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So no, absolutely. I think action and finding a nice equilibrium of education, but also not getting that analysis paralysis. I think that's actually excellent advice, Oscar. So if you're sitting at home, you know, you kind of have a little bit of a deposit together, you know, whether it's 10, 20, 30K, you know, start to get your mind thinking. Something that actually put me in a really good mindset is once upon a time I heard somebody say like, instead of saying like, just change it in your mindset. Like instead of saying, I can't do this, just say like, how can I do this? Just change it like, I can't to like how. And then your mind will begin to think of all these different ways and possibilities that things can potentially work.
100%.
Like I remember at 18 years old writing 15 different ways that I could buy a property without having much of a deposit at all. Like going like whatever it was, guarantors, boom, boom. If I had 15
grants,
minutes.
Going halves with a friend, like there's 1,000 different ways you can do and you know, out of 1,000, 999 won't be perfect, but it's like you're going to, you know, provoke that thought and then eventually come up with something that's going to help you get started.
Absolutely. No, I love it. I guess your fear of not doing anything needs to be far greater than like whether you succeed or not.
100%. Yeah. Like, yeah, you've got to want it more than you care about failing.
Yeah, exactly. No, absolutely. And then in terms of like the market at the moment, like where do you see it going? I saw you make a prediction some time ago. Last year, I saw your podcast with Frankie actually. You predicted the market almost perfectly.
Did I?
Like a year ago.
Have to go back. Yeah.
Watch it. Actually, it's very interesting because, and I'll get back to my question in a moment, but what you said was that the market, so interest rates, so about a year ago, you had that podcast with Frankie and at the time, rates were in the 4.3, 4.4 generally, and they were starting to creeping up. And we said, you know, a lot of people, you know, might not remember, but there was a bit of panic going around. And you said, look, the resi market's not going to crash. It might sort of just like like just be stable and kind of continue. And you said like, we'll probably see that it will be okay. It won't crash as everybody said. And then after that period is done, maybe rates will come down, but then it will start to move up again eventually. So that's probably, you know, next year or the year after, we'll probably see that increase. And also you mentioned that wages were also like, they'd also come up a lot in the sense that it could eat up a lot of that interest rate, which is a big part of why. To go back to that, would you stand by that prediction at this point, or do you think, like, where do you think currently the market's going?
You're right. The last 18 months pretty much echoes what I said, and it's probably more luck than anything. You know, I don't think anybody can perfectly read the market, but like the market has been incredibly resilient in the last 18 months. And, you know, there's been a few interest rate rises, probably 4 or 5 since that podcast. And from what I'm seeing, and I'm across commercial assets more than I am resi, but I'm also on plenty of resi newsletters as well, and like prices seem to be holding fairly steady. I think there's definitely opportunity in the market right now, more than what there has been for the last 3 or 4 years. You know, I think you'd see a listing come up for $850 plus, you know, 3 years ago, and that would go for $920 or $1 million. Now $850 plus might mean $780. I think there's definitely opportunities to buy. I wouldn't say a bargain, but to just get in, you know, at prices that reflect value more than they do FOMO or an incredibly hot market.
Definitely. One thing I saw as well is back in the day, like maybe if we're talking 30, 40 years ago, like I'll talk to my grandparents and my dad and stuff, and they go like, back in the day, like you could save, you work a normal job, Your wife's at home. She's looking after the kids. Man's out. He might work in a factory. Within 18 months, the guy's got enough for a deposit and probably a big one too, 30, 40% deposit to buy a house. Fast forward today, you've got a situation where you've got the husband working, the wife working, the kids, whether they're in school or childcare, and it's taking them fucking nearly a decade to save deposits in relation to what the median house price is for market, especially Melbourne and Sydney. Like, fuck. So what would your comment be on that? And obviously around rent vesting, et cetera, like where do you sort of see all that going in the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty controversial topic and I'm not going to shy away from it at all, but I think, it comes down to like the multiple of wages to median house price. And I think I don't think it's ever been higher in Australia. I think it's something around that 9 or 10 times the average wage is the median house price, which is, like you say, it's ridiculous. And I think it might have made a little bit more sense 2 years ago when interest rates were nice and low and people could afford to borrow more. So it wasn't necessarily how quickly can you pay the house off. It's if you can qualify for the loan to buy the house, which comes with a whole heap of other problems. But I think to me, home ownership isn't the be all and end all. And I'm happy. Like I rent my house where I live now, and I've never owned the house that I live in. I'm happy to pay somebody else for the rent, live where I want to live, and keep my investment capital somewhere else, whether it be in business or multiple businesses or commercial property or a share portfolio or anything like that. I've just never really clung on to that Australian dream of like get out of school, work as hard as you can, don't have smashed avo, don't have $5 coffees, don't travel to Europe, don't do anything except for save your money so you can buy a house deposit in the first shitty house you can afford, miles away from your family and friends, miles away from where you commute to work, just so you can say, I own my house. I never really subscribed to that. And I think that like it's giving young Australians more anxiety than value. And for me, I've just chosen, I want to make money. I want to be financially successful, but I'm not going to do it through owning my own house. And I think rent vesting is another, great topic or great assistance to move in that direction. And of course, that's, rent where you want to live and invest where you can afford. Don't mix the two. And so far, that's working well for me.
100%. Look, rent vesting is massively beneficial, obviously, because you've got that investment capital, and the main thing when I'm looking at buying an investment property is what's my opportunity cost around once I buy this property, what's my borrowing capacity going to look like for the next one, etc. So yeah, if you're tying up your home, with a mortgage that's large, or even not large, you've got this thing that many people will call an asset that isn't really an asset because it is not paying you and you're just enjoying the comfort to say that I own these four walls. But the thing is, life is forever changing. So, 1 year you're here, now you've got a son, maybe you need a different place, maybe you need to be closer to some schools. Like if you bought that place that you're in now, like, all of a sudden you might go, I don't really need that. And then you're in a situation where you're going, do I want to sell this property? Do I want to rent it?
And if you bought 2 years ago, and all of a sudden, like me, you've welcomed a baby, or you've bought a dog, or you've got into a relationship, or you've changed, employers, and now you need to commute somewhere else, or there's 100 different reasons why one home might be more suitable than the one that we're currently in. And if you've purchased the exit or movement from one home to another, it's I've said this before, but it's incredibly inefficient to buy and sell properties. You're buying, you're paying stamp duty, you're paying conveyancing, you're selling, you're paying a sales agent, they've got to do a job, you've got to pay marketing, photos, you might have to stage or fix up a few things in the house to get it optimal. And that's without even considering, if the property market, like in the last 2 years, hasn't really gone up, then, you're coming out of it in, a negative financial position.
For sure. And I'll mention as well, to not to get too controversial, but
do it.
Let's do it. Yeah. So obviously, like in Victoria, like they've absolutely butchered us with taxes coming through. Like, whether it's windfall tax, whether it's land taxes that have come through that have increased. You know, the threshold went from $300,000 down to $50,000. So if someone's got $60,000 worth of land,
Or a flexi unit.
Unit even, they're paying land tax. How fucking crazy is that? How do you feel about, you know, whether it's, I mean, I don't know if it's the right, the left, don't know, don't care. They're all responsible in my book. What's your take on, I guess, the government stance around not really, and I think we can't lie about it, they don't really support investors at all, and I think they hurt the mum and dads as well, and I think that it's pretty fucking atrocious in my book. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't have said about it myself. You know, I think this state and even this country, you know, we are taxed just, it's almost beyond belief.
Yeah.
You know, you'll be taxed on your property while you own it, you know, with land taxes and the likes of what you mentioned. You'll sell the property. If you've made a gain, fantastic, you'll pay tax on that, you know. If you've sold it, made a gain in a company, paid tax, you'll then, you know, disperse that property to your personal income. You might pay a little bit more tax, you know, less the franking credit. Then you'll go and buy, you know, a bottle of wine and you'll pay tax to the government on that bottle of wine in a car that you pay rego on roads that you've already paid tax on, you know, like it's...
That you're still paying the tolls and it just continues.
Man, the taxes in this country. And like, you know, we do live in an incredible country and a lot of what we have to be grateful for in Australia is because of our tax system. So we have like, you know, Medicare and, you know, like schooling systems and stuff like that.
Definitely.
But I think like we're taking the piss now. Like and I think we're making up for a lot of lost ground with the stimulus that came over the last few years. And we needed that stimulus, you know, arguably, but how much did we need? Did it go into the hands of the right people? You know, these are all questions that I don't know if we'll ever know the answer to. And I think they're a lot more opinion supported than factually supported. But mate, I think, you know, I look at the tax that I know some of my friends are paying and like, I just think generally in Australia, the people that are working, you know, working hard, making solid financial decisions, undoubtedly making a few sacrifices along the way and making some money, I think they're getting the short end of the stick at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I feel like there's a war that's been waged even against your mum and dad investors. You know, they've got one investment property, maybe two, that they've worked hard for, and yeah, exactly, they're getting taxed to the hilt on top of everything else. So, you know, hopefully the mindset of it all changes over time. In terms of the kind of jurisdictions that you're looking at developing in, I know you're mainly in Victoria. From what I know, is that potentially going to change into other states over the next few years, in light of, you know, the local government's kind of stance on things, or it's not enough to kind of
It's not enough to push me out. And like, to be honest, I think that it affects the end user more than it does the developer or even the investor of sorts. I think this policy change period affects whoever's holding the bag at the time. But ultimately, it's the end user that ends up paying for it. And that's what, you know, often frustrates me when these governments get voted in. They get voted in by people who are supporting policies that are ultimately going to be to the detriment of the people voting them in anyway. Like it happens so often. And like land taxes, you know, they're either going to be passed on or the rents are going to be increased to reflect it. It's ultimately the end user that pays for these costs anyway. In my position, you know, I've always sort of out of the corner of my eye explored development opportunities interstate, but Ledlin, we have an internal construction company that builds all our own properties. And for us that, you know, it allows us to control the quality of the build, the speed of the build. It allows us to remove administration risk of other construction businesses potentially going under, which has happened a lot in the last few years.
Sure.
At the moment, I'm probably not prepared to take the risk of developing interstate with a third-party building contractor. Down the track, it's something that I'll definitely explore. It'll either be, you know, finding a third-party builder that I trust, doing a JV with a local builder where maybe we use some of my admin team and I help cash flow the thing and we use their on-site team, or I'll set up a small interstate construction company to help deliver our interstate builds. Yeah,
solid. I like it. And obviously building prices is probably something that...
You want to see me cry?
Yeah, crazy. I told you a story obviously offline where I bought... two properties in Hastings, actually, commercial, to, you know, build the commercial side of my portfolio, and this developer had held my money for 2 years, I would say. I was looking forward to it, actually. The whole idea of buying off the plan is you buy at today's price, you settle at tomorrow's price, whatever tomorrow's price is. We hope that the market goes up, but obviously, sure, it's a risk for both parties, but we enter into that contract. And 24 months later, after signing the contract and paying a 10% deposit on both of those properties, I was absolutely flabbergasted when my conveyancer sent me a message and said that the developer had rescinded the contracts and was giving my 2 deposits back, wait for it, with some bonus interest that they've paid me, which was about $32 for the 2 years they held it.
It's a fucking disgrace, to be honest. Like it makes me so angry because I've been in that position. I've been on both sides of that coin, and like you said, there's a risk that's taken by both parties that enter into an off the plan contract, and you took a risk. You put your money down, and you made probably one of the best property calls in the last 30 or 40 years. You put your money down on, you hedged and bet on industrial property right at the start of its most aggressive gain in our history, and it's bullshit that you didn't get the benefit of that. You got your money back and a fucking pat on the back and said better luck next time, which to be honest, you can probably tell it really pisses me off, and I think it gives developers a bad name, and the developer that did that, like he did that multiple times, and I've no doubt he'll do it again. It's so interesting when you mentioned it. You're the first person that I don't know personally, but one of my team, a family member, also bought in that project in Hastings. And you put your money down on a property. If you put your money down on $1 million worth of property when you bought 2, those properties, they're about to settle. That project's nearly complete now. You would have 60% capital growth on those properties at the time of settlement. Like we had 20 to 30% gain on industrial property over that 3-year period per annum. So they've almost doubled in value, and our purchasers who bought at the time that you purchased, they settled with incredible equity in their properties because we did what I think is the right thing to do and upheld our end of the contract.
That's the other thing. This cost you big time, didn't it? Because this is a ethical reputation side of things versus a monetary commercial side of things.
And to be honest, it's a decision you make for your conscience, not for the brand, because like I said, that developer, he's doing incredible things from a commercial point of view. He's built a big business, he's building a lot of properties, he's doing very, very well, and no one gives a fuck that he ripped off 30 mum, dad investors, and guys like yourself. Like he bounces back, he'll do what he'll do. So it's not a brand decision. It's saying For me, because I was in the exact same position, we sold the flexi units off the plan in 2021 and they've settled in December 2023. So we sold them right before the biggest industrial property boom and the biggest construction cost increase that, we've seen in our lifetime and, and for many generations before us. And, I had to absorb $4 million of increased construction costs and sit down with my accountant who said, Oscar, you've got a clause in these contracts that allows you to rescind them. You've got an incredibly strong database of investors. The market's very hot. How long do you think you'd take to resell these properties at today's values? And coincidentally, 3 weeks before, we had launched a project and hit our pre-sales target in 6 minutes. So we knew that we could resell them. And he said there's $4.5 to $5 million in capital growth in these properties if you want to resell them now. And the decision isn't, do I want to do this for my brand? Do I want to do that? It's like we had sold 50 units. It was like, do I want to break the hearts of 50 young commercial property investors, because we have a lot of young purchasers within our projects. Do you want to destroy their financial decision and break their hearts to make $4.5 million? And I thought about it to be like, I'll be frank with you. It wasn't a no-brainer decision. $4 million it's a considerable sum of money, but I just made the decision that if I was in that position, or if one of my family members, or having since learned that one of my friends was in that position, I'd be so fucking angry if somebody did what I had the opportunity to do, and I made the decision not to. And when I hear that it happened to you, I'm like, fuck, I'm glad I made the decision I did.
You're livid because it's not fair because one side of it's going, all right, we're putting the risk in, and if the market did that downturn, whatever, interest rates went up, people lost their jobs, whatever, obviously the developer would be in their right to, take your deposit, sue you, etc. So yeah, it's really shit when they kind of cover their bad side and then take away potential benefits that you can get too.
Yeah, and I mean, contract law changed at the start of 2024 that condition that we could have exited the contracts on but didn't, and the development that you bought into, the condition that he had within his contract, that is now an unfair and unreasonable contract clause, so it can't be within contracts or called upon anymore. So that's a positive change.
Positive. Yeah, definitely.
But
that's positive too. They changed that in residential as well. It used to be that the actual vendor could get out of the contract. Now when the sunset day comes around, it's only the purchaser that can actually get out of the contract. So it's good for consumers as well. Yeah, definitely. Recently I saw that obviously you got married, you had a son. Congratulations.
Thank you, Romeo.
Yeah, I love it.
Little
awesome
Romeo.
name.
Yeah, very strong name. Yeah, he's got big boots to fill.
For sure, absolutely. So with that side of things, so you actually eloped.
We did.
Yeah.
We did.
Okay.
Yeah, we snuck off up to Gold Coast and Currumbin Valley on a beautiful property there it must have been 15, 20 acres in the rainforest. Just my beautiful wife, Jessie, and myself. We had a witness each and their partners. So very, very small, very intimate, incredibly casual wedding.
Awesome.
And I wouldn't change a thing.
Love it. And main thing around that, was it just...
It was, we wanted to get married for us. We didn't have any pressures to get married. I've got 4 siblings. I'm one of 5. And I think just recently I'd seen a few friends get married and just sitting at the weddings being like, fuck, I am so glad I'm not the bride or groom today. Like I've seen so many people pay more money than they should be paying to impress people that shouldn't even be there. And on the day, they're just running around. They're hungry. They can't get food. They can't get drinks. It's come here, say hello to that person. And
they don't actually enjoy the day. They don't enjoy the special moment. And it's
at the end of the night, they get back to their room and they're exhausted and they fall asleep. And I'm like, that is not how I want, a massive decision and such a beautiful moment of my life to be remembered.
For sure.
So we just had the conversation, and I'd always joked about it. Like I told my parents, I'm like, nah, there's going to be 10 people at my wedding max. They're like, you literally have 4 brothers and sisters. And I'm like, nah. And then we ended up Jessie and I just discussed it, and she sort of mentioned it one day, and I didn't even know if she was serious. And I was like, I'll 100% do that. And then we organised it, and that was it. Yeah.
Unreal. And your partner, Jessie, how long have you guys been together? How'd you meet and everything?
We met at a bar in Mornington. Must have been, I hope she doesn't watch this because
you swept her off her feet?
Yeah, exactly right. It was, it must have been 6 or 7 years ago. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
And when we met, I was in a place in my life where I was definitely not looking for a relationship. And I asked to buy a drink. We had a drink together. We had a chat. And then we went our separate ways on the night. And we connected on socials, and we were chatting for a few months. We didn't even date. We were just sort of loosely chatting. And I was, running amok, doing my thing. And then I just said, you know what, I'm ready to take you on a date, and we caught up, and that was it. Yeah.
Love it. Cool. And I guess before you had Romeo, how was the dynamic in your relationship? Like, were you somebody that was sort of like, because I know she does a lot of really great things in her own right as well. So is that, sort of she gets inspired by you and wants to do that sort of stuff?
I mean, I like to think so. Yeah. I mean, she's doing incredibly well. Like her business, she's running her business and she's making 7 figures a year, which is like incredible.
Amazing.
She does it from home. She's now doing it while raising our son. She's always done it while looking after the household and the dogs and making me feel like a king. So like she's a beast, to be honest. The dynamic in our relationship, it's what I would consider pretty traditional for the Western culture. We are I play a masculine role. She plays a feminine role. she's taking care of the household and I'm providing.
Yep.
And now she just earns her own money. I still provide.
Yep.
She still organizes the household, but she can still buy me, a Cartier bracelet for my birthday now because she's making bank. Or like organizing the household used to be organizing dinners and packing lunches and stuff like that. And now it's making sure that our chef's cooking what I like. It's a different.
That's cool.
The things have changed, but the dynamic is still exactly the same, which I think is really cool.
What role does choosing the right partner have on your business side of things?
The biggest.
Yeah.
I think like if you're ever going to do business with a partner, I think business partner is, a very big decision to make in your life.
Yeah.
And then I think the biggest decision you'll ever make in your life is, your life partner or your husband or wife or your significant other. And fuck, man, I'm pretty proud of the one that I've made, the decision that I've made with that. Like Jesse and I, our relationship is incredible. The life that we're building is incredible. Our friendship, and now, sort of it's only been 11 weeks, but just experiencing what it's like to bring another human into the world. And it's just a whole nother thing to navigate. It's like, how are you going to feed them? How are you going to sleep them? Are you going to let them cry? It's just a whole nother dynamic that we get to experience together. And, I'm really enjoying it.
Amazing. And in terms of your mentality around, from business to your health, to your personal life and the way you view life and maybe your mortality now that you're a father, do you feel like that's changed much since Romeo's come into the world?
I think it started to change just at the thought of bringing a Romeo into the world. Like just when Jesse and I started having the conversation about, maybe it's time to start, going down that path of having a baby. And to be honest, we hadn't, or I'll speak for myself more so, I hadn't done anything with as much vigor and focus as I did with preparing to have a baby. I don't disrespect anybody that does it different, but for me, I was like, this is a massive task that I'm about to undertake, and I want to give it the best shot that I can, and I want to reproduce the most healthy, vibrant, astute human being that I can. So I'm going to give that, the attention that I believe it deserves. And that came with like just cutting out so much shit from my life and adding in some, more favorable or more positive things. So, I cut out things like alcohol, caffeine, gluten. Moved every toxin from, deodorant, skincare, shampoo, all that sort of stuff. Had structured sunlight, different exercise routines, 15 different supplements. I was spending, about $2,500 a month on supplements, just because I really wanted to give it the attention it deserves. And then breath work, cold therapy, all this
Getting
sort
all
of
your
stuff.
bloods done, all this stuff.
All that
I
sort
love
of
it.
stuff. And
that started at the thought of Romeo?
We wanted to do it for 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah. So we wanted to prepare our bodies for 6 months before starting to try have a baby. And, we went really hard at that. And then we tried, and I like to think that I did a great job at trying. Awesome. And we conceived on the first time, which was really cool. Amazing. And then, now Romeo's he's here, and cool. It's cool to sort of look back and think like, fuck, I did it. I gave it, everything I could for that period. So
yeah, awesome. And one thing I'm very curious about with you is, obviously, your age, hyper successful. The portfolio is obviously going to continue to grow. We're going to do bigger and bigger things as time goes on. By the time Romeo is 15 years old, 18 years old, and in his early 20s, you will be so established commercial business-wise. Obviously, your mentality and everything will change over time. But, at this point in time, what's your mindset around, how you're going to kind of keep him grounded, yet, letting him, kind of do what he wants to do and all of that sort of thing, with outside influences? Like, how are you sort of thinking about that?
Yeah, it's definitely a critical consideration. And like, we spent yesterday, Romeo had his first trip to the spa at 11 weeks old, which Jesse organised, which like, he's not going to remember that. That was for us more than anything. But, his floating around the spa bath in this little neck floaty thing, just having the time of his life. And then he had a 15-minute massage after, and it's like, what the fuck are we doing? You know, I put a Rolex on him the other day just for a bit of a laugh. And I don't know. I think like with the right amount of focus, guidance, love, I don't think that, you know, I hope that
it's not too much of a problem.
I hope he grows up, you know, wearing Rolexes and being driven around in a Lamborghini, but he holds the door open for old people and, you know, knows right from wrong. I think that it can be done, and, you know, I look forward to being one that does it.
It doesn't have to be one or the other, I guess.
I don't think so. Yeah. I think I would rather, you know, I know trust fund babies and they're fucking assholes. And I know trust fund babies who are incredible people. They know right from wrong. They have, you know, what I believe are good, you know, morals and a good head on their shoulders. And then I know people that have no money that are fucking assholes. And I know people that have no money that are incredible people. So
100%.
I don't think that having money is the biggest determining factor of whether you raise a good human being or not.
Fair call. You going to homeschool, or are you going to put them in traditional school?
Not sure. I'm not sure. What are your thoughts?
Tough one. I mean, I don't have a Romeo on the way yet. Yeah. I don't think. Look, it probably just depends on where we're sitting, you know, politically and everything at the time, and what's going on in schools, you know, when I've got a little one coming on the way.
To be honest, it's not something that I would have considered a couple of years ago, but it's definitely something that I'm considering now. You know, there's just so many things being taught in schools that I don't agree with, and I have some confidence that Romeo could be in an environment around those sort of things, and then he would spend enough time out of that environment with me where he has the discernment to know if what he's being taught is right from wrong. But I'm not sure if I would want to take that risk. So I think it'll be...
You got a bit of time though.
I've got a bit of time, yeah.
No, that's good. That's good. And I guess to keep on the schools topic, I mean, one of the things that they don't teach in schools, to circle back a little bit, but you know, obviously they don't teach any money management, credit cards, loans, you know, how to buy a house, all of this sort of stuff. Why do you think that is?
To be honest, I really don't know. I don't like. I've heard plenty of sinister accusations, and I don't necessarily agree or disagree with them. I think it's ridiculous. You know, I think that
crazy. Yeah.
Maybe there's too much history in our curriculum and not enough forward thinking. I think the curriculum is outdated. I think it's far too old. But I'm not sure why it's taking so long to move. I don't think it needs to be the case. We have such a strong network of government-supported schools. I don't see why we couldn't have a pretty radical change in the curriculum. I think there's enough control there. You know, we have private schools, but I don't think there's enough control there with the government-supported schools that we could change the curriculum pretty easily. I'm not sure why it hasn't been done.
Very interesting. Yeah. It's a tough one. Baffles me at this point. No, absolutely. And you obviously read Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Absolutely, that was a staple growing up and had a large influence on me. I don't follow too much of his stuff nowadays, but you know that first Rich Dad, Poor Dad book was just a real awakening for my mind, and
definitely
highly recommend it to those that haven't read it.
Absolutely, yeah. One of my first books that I read as well. It's a great mindset book. One thing I was going to saw, actually, I saw some time ago, you put up a post about your vision board and, you know, some of the things that you wanted in your life. And one of the things that I saw was you'd always wanted a Ferrari. I saw this big red Ferrari on your vision board. And, you know, at this point, I guess, why haven't you just bought it, you know, with grab the change under your bed or whatever?
Frequently asked question.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think I was thinking about this last night. I'm like, I just had this inclination that it was going to come up, and I was asked it recently, and I didn't really know how to answer it. And I think it just comes down to the value of the Ferrari, like to me, the value that I would get out of it compared to the value or the opportunity cost, the value of the capital or the opportunity cost at the moment, and it's just sort of lost its appeal a little bit. I'm not sure why. Like, I wanted a Ferrari before I could afford one.
Yep.
And don't get me wrong, you know, $500-600 grand, for me, that it's still at the point where I would have to be like, if I'm going to pay cash for this thing, I would be considering where else the money could be. I'm not at the level where, it's, under the bed at home or anything like that. So I think considering it's like, I'll either have to leverage this property that's currently unencumbered, or, I'm going to have less of a safety net of cash in the bank or something like that. And I'm just sort of like, it's not going to give me that much joy at the moment. And then now Romeo's come into the picture. I've got cars that are stored in flexi units that I just haven't driven for 11 weeks. They're there, they're on trickle charge, they're clean, the weather's good. Yeah. And on a Friday night when I'm, coming past, I'm like, I could just whip in and swap the Range Rover for my GDR or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. The headspace isn't there at the moment.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've started looking at Urus.
Yep.
I'm not sure, man. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's time. I think it's probably time for a new toy.
Yeah.
But the 488, I just don't see it being a whole lot of value at the moment. When Romeo's old enough to sit in cars, there'll be a collection start straight away. Yeah.
Awesome.
But for now, he's in the baby seat in the back, so something more practical maybe.
Fine. Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk about G-Up as well. How's all that going?
It's going like fantastically, to be honest. It's like I was asking before about your international business endeavors, and you said, a few hurdles, it's going well, but a few hurdles along the way. G-Up's been no different. Like any startup, you've got to go so hard to break that sort of initial ceiling to where it gets to a point where it becomes not a self-sustained business, not at all, but you can at least have half a day without focusing on it, sort of thing. So
sure, because you're the CEO of that business,
yeah, the appointed CEO. I don't know why the boys were so insistent on that, but it was supposed to be a side business. It was supposed to be something small that we did on the side. We chucked $500,000 in, get a Shopify store, and see how we go. But it blew up, and then we raised capital amongst the boys again, threw more money in. Now we're in first choice liquor land all across Australia. So it's a considerable business now. It's
awesome.
It's doing 7 figures a month. It's got a good strong team. We're forward looking, so it's teaching me a lot, and I'm having a lot of fun.
Amazing. And in terms of, I guess, where you're hoping to go with G-Up at the moment, like where's that all heading?
To be honest, at the moment, I'm really just enjoying it and just having fun. Like, property is where my heart is. I don't see myself ever leaving property development. I think I'll be old and grey and still, showing up on a job site and swinging my walking stick around, telling people I could do it better. But G-Up at the moment, it's an outlet where I can explore, express, and experience new ways of doing business with new partners and new
doing it with your mates as well.
Exactly.
Like, how good's that?
Man, doing it with your mates is just it's incredible, and having that extra driving force of doing it for your loved ones.
Yep.
And just a new industry, new people, and just having a bit of fun.
Learn a bunch, having a bit of fun.
Exactly.
Unreal.
Yeah.
No, amazing. No, that's great. And in terms of what you've got coming up, like, what are you most excited about? Like, what does 2025 look like for Oscar?
To be honest, 2025 is just not that far away for people that are doing things like we're doing. I'm planning for far beyond that, but I think 2025 is really just enjoying some of the efforts of 2024, 2023, and 2022 for me.
Let's say 2030 then.
2030, 2030. I'm the CEO of a handful of different businesses, and becoming a little bit more recognized for some of my business accomplishments. And I think just really enjoying every part of life.
Yeah.
I think when you're grinding and when you're really in the early stages, which I know you have experience, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate with, there's a lot of sacrifice. You're not seeing your friends and family. You're not prioritizing your health. You're not sleeping enough. You're not eating right. You're probably not even drinking enough water, right? You're just so focused on work that you you can become a little bit bitter, just temporarily. Not bitter is the wrong word. You can just become so focused on what you're doing that you're not really stopping to smell the roses. And I think the last couple of years have been a transition for me where I'm still going hard, like I'm still, often first one in the office, always last one to leave. And I'm ambitious. I know what I want, but I'm doing it just with a different appreciation for little things, I would book a podcast 2 years ago and be like, fuck, got to go to Abbotsford, got to do this. Now I'm like, fuck, I can't wait to catch up with Beau. He's my boy. We can, see what's going on over this side of town. Like I don't know, the sun's shining, different. I'm appreciating
mindset around everything.
That's all it is. It's just mindset.
Yeah, cool. So before where it was like very commercially focused, like have to do this, need to get this milestone, this is what's next. More it's about like
I get to do this. It's pretty much all it is like I get to have I'll go into hard conversations now being like, fuck, I'm going to come out of this better than I went in. Like I get to have this hard conversation. I get to experience this. Bad things happen. I'm like, whew, I'm learning from this. Like, and don't get me wrong, there's still days and, moments where I'm like, fuck this. But like, I'm just trying to have more of those moments where I'm appreciating what I've got. Yeah.
Definitely. And even when the hard things come, at least on the other side, you're going to be a better person for it. You're going to learn a bunch of things.
Yeah.
I've had some big hurdles happening overseas, and now they're all starting to all get smoothed out. But if they didn't happen, I wouldn't have learned all of these things that are going to be super beneficial for me to know.
Absolutely.
That I'll take well into the future. So,
absolutely.
I think, having a different mindset to your challenges and, in general, an overall just appreciation for life, I guess.
100%.
As corny as that sounds.
I was going to say, as cringe as what people say that sounds in the comments. It's just an appreciation for life.
Definitely.
I want to know what 2030 looks like for you.
For me, I actually started my business in Dubai previously. About 2 years ago, I bought my first investment property in Dubai. Now I've got an office in Dubai in Business Bay, and I've got a portfolio of 4 investments in Dubai plus my commercial office. The reason I went to Dubai in the first place was it wasn't about money. It wasn't about tax. It was about finding a new challenge, getting inspired again, pushing myself, and just getting in the trenches again to start a new business from scratch, because that's what I enjoy. And, I thought that I actually often assign my businesses to things that I'm interested in. So for instance, I started my property investment company in Australia because I was buying property investments and I was getting really knowledgeable on that. And then with Dubai, I started investing in Dubai, in 2022, built a small portfolio there, and then thought, this is actually quite good. People don't really know this. Maybe some people want to set up residencies and companies as well. Started to support people with what I'm doing in case other people are interested. So I kind of go in that approach. I wasn't a super commercial idea of when I wanted to do it. I just wanted to have fun. So that was that side of things. And probably about 2 years ago, I started putting a lot less pressure on myself to reach new heights in terms of where I was going to be commercially. I've started to enjoy life more, as we spoke about before. I've started to be more grateful, and I've been less focused on what the commercial outcome and the dollar signs are exactly. Obviously, we still look at those and we're super focused on those. That's how how we keep score, but really it is how we keep score. In the meantime, other things, when I think about a good, successful year at this point, I'm thinking about I just planned a trip with my dad to Italy, which I've never done for the first time. So we're going to go 2.5 weeks. We're going to drive around all places I've never been in Italy. We're going to do that together. So we're making up for lost time. We're also going to go to the Himalayas and ride motorbikes for the better part of 2 weeks as well. So, I'm going to go to South America for the first time. So, along with my achievements that I want to do business-wise, which will never stop, and, I'm constantly trying to push the envelope with what interests me, I also have found a newfound importance and appreciation for all the buckets. So I feel like I don't mind, it sort of sounds silly, but I don't mind if I wake up and I'm 40 years old and I'm worth $20 million when I could have been worth $200 million, but say I wake up and I'm worth 20 or 30 million, but I've been to 20 countries and I've had all of these experiences and I've taken my mom. I know it doesn't have to be this or that, but at this point,
it does to some degree.
Maybe it does.
Yeah.
Maybe it does.
It does. Yeah.
So this is what I'm enjoying.
Yeah.
If you ask, 2030 to answer your question, it would be it'd probably be helping a lot of younger people who are in that, that 20s, some point in their 20s. They want to start a business. They have the passion. They don't know exactly what to do. I'd probably help them with a lot of, whether it's mentoring or startups and this sort of thing, and being involved in that from an equity perspective, from an angel perspective, doing that side of things, and then still being in property, which I love.
Yeah.
So hopefully that answers the question a little bit.
Mate, absolutely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the venture capitalist side of you to come out when you. Yeah.
Definitely. And I got a few goodies for you today as well for Bub. So
you're a good man.
Yeah, I hope you enjoy them. My mum's skincare company. So
shout out to
Catherine at Aroma Baby.
Absolutely, Catherine from Aroma Baby.
Yeah, so she actually started the business 30 years ago, pretty much when I was a bub, and basically just non-scented, all certified organic products to not irritate the baby, because obviously. A lot of the stuff on the market, I won't name anyone, Johnson & Johnson, et cetera, a lot of the stuff is, arguably all crap. And when she was looking at, looking at using products on me as a baby, like she looked on the market and she goes, everything on the market's shit. And then she was passionate about aromatherapy and oils and ingredients and did it herself. So maybe I follow in her footsteps there, just following what I'm passionate about.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for today, Oscar. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Beau.
Absolutely had a ball, brother, and look forward to catching up again on one of these things.
Absolutely, mate. I appreciate you having me on.